Thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. It's the first trial of its kind by the International Criminal Court. Child soldier turned warlord Dominic Ongwen has appeared in court and pleaded not guilty to 70 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Mr. Ongwen was a commander of the Lord's Resistance Army, a Ugandan rebel group which earned a reputation for massacres, mutilation of civilians and mass abduction of children from the late 1980s. The BBC's Anna Holigan reports.
He was a child groomed to be just like his oppressors. According to the prosecutor, Dominic Ongwen rose rapidly through the ranks of the LRA as a result of his loyalty and ferocity as a fighter. He is accused of abducting young girls and keeping them as sex slaves, kidnapping boys, some as young as 6 years old, and forcing them to commit brutal attacks on civilians.
Mr. Ongwen, please rise.
Mr. Ongwen's lawyer's request for the trial to be halted to allow him to undergo psychiatric tests was rejected by the judges. When asked if he understood the crimes he's accused of committing, he replied,
"It is the LRA who abducted people in northern Uganda. The LRA killed people in northern Uganda. The LRA committed atrocities in northern Uganda. And I am one of the people against whom the LRA committed atrocities. But it's not me, Dominic Ongwen, who is the LRA."
Dominic Ongwen's short statement encapsulates why this trial is expected to present a wealth of legal and ethical dilemmas for the ICC, which is fiercely outspoken on the use and abuse of children in conflict. The question for the judges here is, should the fact that he too is a victim make any difference? And his appearance here is evoking a mixture of emotions.
It is complicated, just like the individual, because you've got to have some sympathy for him, but at the same time you have to have some sympathy for the victims. So I think we should just call it the process of justice.
More than 100,000 people have been murdered by this rebellious religious cult, led by one of the ICC's most wanted suspects, Joseph Kony.
Psychologically, I've been tortured. After seeing, in a day, over 40 people killed, seeing people burned, I lost my stepmom. My art was destroyed, was burned. My father's house was destroyed.
The prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, acknowledged that Mr. Ongwen had also suffered as a child, but said that could not be used to excuse the murders, rapes and torture he's accused of committing as an adult. Anna Holigan, BBC News in The Hague.
Well, let's go to Kampala now and speak to Kihika Kasande from the International Center for Transitional Justice. Thanks for taking time to talk to us. And that's the question, is it not? Should the fact that Mr. Ongwen was a victim of child conscription, really, should that make a difference in this trial?
Good evening, Sophie. Yes, indeed, it is a dilemma that the court faces. He is the first person who is facing trial for crimes which he also endured. Well, this is an aspect that the court will consider as a mitigating factor. The crimes he's facing trial for are crimes he committed while he was above the age of 18, and those are the charges that he is facing. So the court will consider his victimization during the mitigation of sentencing hearing, if at all it gets to that.
Well, another interesting issue that's come up is the psychiatric evaluation that was earlier rejected by the judges. What do you make of that?
Well, the defense raised the question of a psychiatric evaluation to determine whether Ongwen is indeed fit to stand trial. Now, we will remember that during the confirmation of charges hearing in January, Ongwen actually pleaded that he understands the charges that were read to him. So these are the same charges that were confirmed. Although the court has left the door open for a psychiatric evaluation, they have instructed the registrar to identify a psychologist. But it is an interesting factor. It's an issue regarding the impact of child soldiering on his ability to distinguish right from wrong, on his ability to understand the charges that are against him.
But how do communities view child soldiers? Because we have other former child soldiers in other countries on the continent. Are they still viewed as, you know, really guilty, so to speak?
Well, understandably, there is overwhelming sympathy in the communities in northern Uganda for Dominic Ongwen and other child soldiers who were robbed of their childhood and conscripted into this cult, forced to commit atrocious crimes. However, Ongwen's alleged ruthlessness precedes him, as we had the prosecutor lay out counts of horrific attacks, enslavement, rape, and attacks on IDP camps. So it's mixed feelings. There is a sense of sympathy for what befell him, but also there's a continued demand for justice, for accountability for the alleged crimes.
So how far then do you think this trial will go towards, you know, bringing healing to the victims of the LRA?
It is a step in the right direction. But more needs to be done to contribute to healing and reconciliation. What the trial shall do, it shall provide acknowledgement for the victims of the crimes allegedly committed by Ongwen. Importantly, it will also provide the truth. It will get to the heart of what exactly happened during the conflict. What crimes did the LRA commit? What motivated those crimes? So this gives a sense of acknowledgement for victims, but more needs to be done to provide reconciliation, and this is through truth-telling and also reparations.
All right, Sarah Kasande Kihika, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us on Focus on Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.